they take their foot off the pedal.
Yeah.
And that's when they should be spending more on marketing, trying to grow the business. People want to buy a business that's happening and exciting. You'll get more money for it if people see it as a thriving business.
Welcome to Digital Dividends. Katrina, I'm excited to have you here. And I'm going to do a proper introduction for you because you've got quite the career. And so I want to make sure people listening get the full scope, really. So you have sold your business, and most people spend their whole life working just trying to build one. And that is the goal for so many of us. But now you've turned around and you're making a career out of helping other people do the same thing. So I'm really excited today to hear your experience from having been there and done that, and now helping others do the same. But you and your husband, Mark, spent close to 13 years building the Golden Pig in Newstead. So for Brisbane listeners, that is an institution, taking that from a cooking school into a full restaurant and earning a good food guide chef's hat along the way. But in 2016, Mark had a major stroke that left him with aphasia, and almost overnight, you went from the chef to the person running the entire business. That's going to be an amazing experience we're going to hear about. So learning the books, suppliers, all over from scratch. And then 2 years later, you rebuilt, and by 2022, you'd tripled your turnover, and then eventually selling the business to now becoming a business broker. So it's a really wonderful arc and journey. I'm sure there's plenty we can learn from you. And today we're going to talk about what it takes to build a business worth selling. And really, I'd like to tease out what you have learned through that whole process that you know now. And on reflection, we all, get that wisdom of looking in the rearview mirror. But I think today we're going to tease through some of those things that you would have liked to have known then, because that's the then is where a lot of the listeners are sitting for us. So I think there's going to be a lot of wisdom here today. So thank you for joining us.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Now, you've been to the gym before, you're telling me before, so you're pumped, right?
I am.
Ready to go.
I am. Excited to be here.
Thank you. And so you built the Golden Pig from a cooking school into a full restaurant over 13 years. That's quite a solid time frame. If you think back to the start and the original idea, did you have thoughts about what sort of school you wanted to build? And I'd love you to touch on your time with Neil Perry and just some of the philosophies and principles you came into that with.
My first early career was working for Neil in a couple of restaurants that he had. And I met my husband working for Neil. Mike was also a chef. He trained at Kinsellas in Sydney. And we went overseas. We both worked in London together, came back, and Neil had just opened Rockpool. So that's where I got to work for him. And then 3 years later, I was his head chef and running the kitchen for him. And then...
At Rockpool, you were the head chef? That's amazing. For people who don't know, Rockpool is a very esteemed Sydney restaurant. I've actually been there. It was News Corp used to go there all the time with when Rupert was in town, we'd go to dinner there. They loved it.
So he basically taught me to cook. And I, learned how to cook all different types of cuisine. We were doing a lot of Thai food around that time as well, and that was really quite new to the Sydney scene. That all came through David Thompson and Neil's relationship with David.
Who's David Thompson?
So he's probably the most recognised Australian Thai chef. He lives in Thailand now. He's opened Thai restaurants in London. I think that was the first Michelin star Thai restaurant in London.
Wow.
Yeah, so David's... and Marty Burtz, who has Short Grain, he cut his teeth with David down in Sydney. So David's reach and knowledge is sort of spread far and wide. So
isn't it amazing the impact these individuals can have? But they're so much more than just a task, aren't they? There's so much more to a person like that brings people along.
David's amazing. So and then I started having kids. Mark opened some restaurants in Sydney, so we had pizza restaurants in there. So we actually went through the process of selling restaurants back then. We sold 2 in a very short amount of time.
Would you say successfully?
One successfully, one not so successfully. And the key thing, which I was determined not to replicate when I sold Golden Pig, was that my husband loves to set things up and create them, and then he hated the day-to-day running of them.
Right. Right.
And I was at home mostly with the kids by that stage, and he was running it, and he was, you could say, he's over it, and he had sort of given up. Once he decided to sell, he kind of had given up on the place. Determined with Golden Pig, when I decided to sell, I was still going to run it as best as I could and still push it forward, still keep growing it while I was in the process of selling. So that's
to both sustain and maybe accelerate that valuation you might ultimately get.
And not mentally give up, because people sense that when buyers want to buy a business, they want to see something thriving and working and still have potential and still growing. They don't want to buy something that someone can't wait to get out of.
Yeah. So you really got to send that thing off with a push.
I changed brokers.
Did you? That's interesting.
Yep. So that's how I came to do business broking, because Davina, my boss, was the second broker and she sold it.
She sold the business and bought you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that is an interesting, I want to touch on that while we're there, because that whole emotional roller coaster of selling a business, which is actually starting before you go for sale, it's actually the pre-sale, and there's triggers and life events and things that hit us in a moment. And yet when we're building that business or operating that business, we also need to be running that business really at all times like a business that someone else might be ready to buy. I'd love to know what your reflections on that are, because there's an emotional overlay, but there's this operational piece as well that says you still need to be running a good business at all times, so that if you, for whatever reason, need to quickly go for sale, what would you say the state of many businesses is when they come to you to say, hey, I want to sell my business?
Yeah, I think a good half, if not more, are people where we were back with our early restaurants, where they've had enough and they just want to get out, and they're mentally already given up. I would say more than half are like that.
Really? So they're on a decline, you would say?
Even if it's a mental decline, the owners lost interest, they're tired of doing it, they're tired of the day-to-day running of it.
What happens? Do you get in there and pick them up? What happens at that point? Or they just sell for a discount?
Yeah, they often sell for a discount.
Yeah.
Because, the turnover's going down, and they're going, I'm not making as much money out of it, but they take their foot off the pedal.
Yeah.
And that's when they should be spending more on marketing, trying to grow the business, trying to get their customers back. That's when they should be really, people want to buy a business that's happening and exciting. Sure, they want to buy something that they think's got a lot of potential as well, but you'll get more money for it if people see it as a thriving business.
And so that's just picking on I know you've done physiotherapy as well, and we were joking earlier that you worked a lot with oil and meat, so with your physio plus your cooking. But with that, what are some of the things that you would look for from, say, a marketing and a energizing a business in the marketplace? What are some of the things that tell you a business is thriving and working well, if we just think about the food and beverage or entertainment sort of sector?
Look, it all comes down to, as a business broker, it all comes down to the bottom line. So if you're looking at a profit or loss over a few years, you want to see growth, or you want to see steady profit.
But are you looking at things like the number of customers coming through? Are you looking at the average spend per customer? How are we investing in marketing? Where is that running? Are we making sure that we've got a healthy, robust social media profile? Do we have a business that is doing video that's engaging and has a point of differentiation, or something that goes through to say, this is what we're about? What are some of the things in there that you would say?
Yeah, definitely. And even before I go and meet a person, if they've called me up and say I've got business, I look at their website, I look at their Google ratings, and if it's a 4.7, 4.8, that goes on the information memorandum.
Yeah.
This is a good business. This has got customers like it. It's got a good reputation.
Love
so that's really important.
And do you know what to do, or do you find business owners? Well, firstly, do you find business owners actually care about that stuff? Are you finding people are quite mindful that these are important ingredients to have a business worth selling?
Some do and some don't. And I think there's the smart people picking up businesses maybe going cheap, but can see the potential.
Right.
Because they know that, I can spend some money on this advertising, or change up the website, or sell online even, offer, different... they can just see a way to grow the business that maybe retirees who are selling it, and maybe it's great business, they've had it for 25 years, but the next person, a younger person, perhaps who's a bit more marketing savvy.
And even marketing in the way that young people buy. So that entertainment, eating out is, sub 35s. We know that, people will not only use social media tools to reach new audiences, younger buyers will learn about a new business and they're instantly on the socials to see if it validates that this is a place worth going to visit.
Absolutely.
And we can see that hype, not even hype, just that validation. It's easy to build. So you've actually been technically brilliant. You've studied under, I love that you say they taught me how to cook. But when you're technically so proficient, have you found it, that has translated into the sort of business you want to run and that you've established a standard? And how do you sort of drive that home into the brand so you become a business and a brand that, the Golden Pig had a great brand.
Yeah.
Have you got any tips on how you sort of make that happen while staying technically brilliant, but also translating that into an experience?
I've got to say, I think that all just kind of happened organically. It was not a conscious, it really wasn't a sort of, I'm not going to do this to improve the brand or that. I know when I first sort of felt at the point that I was doing too much, I'm doing everything.
You had this great grounding. You've been taught by the best. You're in the Golden Pig and you're running the business and you're sort of doing your piece, but then Mark has his stroke and now you're absolutely doing everything. What's it like to have to go through a period like that?
So at that point, Golden Pig was a cooking school and it was a cafe Monday to Friday. And Mark had stroke. He had done all the admin stuff, he'd pay the wages, pay the invoices. He'd help with the big, we did a lot of corporate events. We did a lot of KPMG chairman's dinners, weddings. We were doing things like that on weekends as well. And so when he had the stroke, and it wasn't like he could tell me how to do things because he has aphasia, so he couldn't actually talk.
Wow.
So
what's aphasia? Just explain that condition.
It affects the language center of the brain. So, he's lying in hospital and I'm saying, what's the password for the banking website? And he can't tell me. Write it down and realize he can't even write. He can't for the read or write as well. And then it was actually 2 years after Mark had his stroke that I decided to morph into a restaurant. I could just sort of do whatever I wanted at that point. And I didn't have someone holding me back who was always a little bit of I'm sick of doing this, let's do something else.
Yeah, the shiny stuff's over.
Yeah, the shiny stuff's over. So I just thought, okay, let's, I had always wanted to do an Asian restaurant. I'd spent a lot of time working at Spirit House, teaching there. And
it's a wonderful establishment as well.
Hiding my love of Asian food.
Yeah.
And so, 2018 is when we launched the restaurant. So, it was a really good move. But I had to learn that, I had to learn to delegate. So one of the first things I did was get a social media company to do Instagramming and things like that. That was, oh my God, revelation for me.
It's amazing.
I spent so long making crappy EDMs to send out to people and it would take me hours.
Wow.
And then they could do it like that and do it so professionally.
And it's better.
So
it's something we find with business owners not valuing their own time. Oh, I did this for free. No, you didn't. It cost you actually hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do that because your time is best spent elsewhere actually making money.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good that you've lived through that. And do you see that same pattern repeated in a lot of the businesses you might see now? Yeah,
definitely. Or people, they don't see value in delegating. They think, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
No, it's always better to have professionals doing things properly rather than you trying to do everything, not very well.
Speaking of professionals doing things properly, well, I've been to Spirit House and the cooking school, and I think the real punishment there is you actually make the meal, but then you actually have to eat it. So I was disappointed at that point. I thought, really, can't we just? I don't follow rules real well. So
it's been delicious.
Yeah, big chunky bits of celery, chunk, anyway, it wasn't good. So moving from the cooking school to the restaurant, is that much of a shift? I mean, it feels like it's a very different type of product. What were some of the changes you had to make even in your marketing and the mix and sort of repositioning the business? Did you find it was a natural extension or were there quite a few changes you had to make?
Yeah, it was actually back then. I actually had a PR person, so people don't really have them anymore. We sort of really went into the social media side, and about halfway through owning it, I did. Didn't have a PR person anymore, and I just used the social media company.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she was great, and we'd meet every week and get me on the Courier Mail and a few things like that. So it was different.
What did that mean for you? So when you got in the Courier Mail at that time, I'm going to touch on an observation there, but when you did make it, what was the effect? Did the phone start ringing? Did people start turning up? Because I think that is what changed with PR. PR is still around for certain channels and brands, but the social media piece has become the extension of that. And then there is that DIY overlay. But what we see is the complexity of those platforms and the way the algorithms decide who wins. It is so far beyond the average person's understanding to try and dabble at that and succeed. I think it's really wonderful that you've had that realization that to get someone who lives in that space all day, every day, I've been doing this digital marketing for over 20 years, and I still feel daily that I don't know enough to do things as well as I'd like.
Honestly, the difference, I sold 2 years ago yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And just now working for Stockbridge, now I see, the SEO and all that. It's just changing all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Would you say it's essential for businesses when they go to market that they have those things in order? Do you meet people who don't agree with that?
I think there's people that don't get it, or they think that it's not important. They've never used it maybe, so they don't understand that it's important now.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for your advice today and for joining us on Digital Dividends. And I really hope that some of the folks who have heard have taken some gems out of that, and maybe they'll reach out when they need a hand.
Thanks, Mark.